Perfect. Hi, welcome everybody. Today is Monday, June 17th, and we will be doing a dealer and dismantler training workshop for the Mojave Debtors MDAQMD Voucher Incentive Program. My name is Jorge Camacho, and I'm part of the grant section here at the district who would be leading this program. Helping me out today with the presentation is our other grants team member, Trung, who will be walking us through the PowerPoint of the presentation. Trung, can you go on to the next slide, please? Okay. So we're going to cover four main areas today. There's four main items in our agenda: introduction, then program overview, dealer requirements and training, dismantler requirements and training, and then we're going to end it off with a question and comment section. Next slide. Introduction and program overview. I briefly introduced myself. My name is Jorge Camacho, and I mentioned I'm going to be the lead for the Mojave Debtors Air Quality Management District's program here. There's my email on the screen, as far as my phone number and my extension as well. And we also have a general email at grants@mdaq.ca.gov for any general questions or inquiry. You can email me, or you can also email that link right there as well. Next slide, please. So program over here. So the MDAQMD is really excited to kick off our voucher incentive program for 2024. The main objective of this program is to reduce emissions from in-use heavy-duty trucks and small fleets by replacing older vehicles with new models that are certified as zero emission. As far as outreach, the Mojave Debtors Air Quality Management District, which you'll see me refer to as MDAQMD or the district, will advertise on our website and social media. We will also encourage dealers and dismantlers to inform the customers about our program as well. Now, the program will run until the end of December 31st, 2024, until funds are exhausted, whichever comes first. Next slide. Dealers and dismantlers roles. The role that the dealers and dismantlers will play in this program, you're going to be assisting applicants with completing their applications. We're going to be achieving the program goals of retiring older, higher polluting equipment with cleaner engine technology, and lastly, to maintain the program's integrity to make sure there's minimum abuse and fraud of the program. Next slide. Now, eligibility. For the voucher incentive program, it's going to be limited to owners/operators with fleets of 10 or fewer vehicles. From those fleets, at least 75% of the operation of the equipment must be based in the state of California. This program is a first come, first served basis. And most importantly, whoever participates, the fleets must be in compliance with CARB regulations. Next slide. Let's continue eligibility. Eligibility for the program would be replacements for vehicles that have a gross vehicle weight rating or GVWR greater than or equal to 14,001 pounds. In some cases, there is funding for up to $410,000 per zero emission truck. Drayage and non-drayage trucks with engine model years 2010 to 2018 are eligible for this year's program. As a general rule of thumb, it's just 6 years or older from the current year to be eligible. And the existing trucks can be diesel or an alternative fuel vehicle such as natural gas. Next slide. Continuing with eligibility, the replacement trucks must be zero emission or battery electric vehicle or a fuel cell electric vehicle. Last year, CAR did provide updated changes to the program, where before it could have been a diesel for diesel replacement, but as of last year, they're only allowing zero emission replacement vehicles to be participant for the program. The replacement trucks must be new. As I mentioned earlier, funding amount up to $410,000 per truck may be eligible for somebody with high mileage. Co-funding options with the HVIP is possible. However, due to it's up to the funding limits under each program, which we also will call Appendix Appendix O, and fleet attestation requirements under the new AB 794, which I'll go over in a different slide. One thing to note that if an applicant is going to co-fund with HVIP, you're going to have to apply for the VIP program first. Next slide. So the basic VIP process steps as far as the program, how it works is, I'm just going to go through it. Number one, an applicant visits an approved VIP dealer. The dealer verified eligibility and prepared and assists with the application. The dealer then submits the completed VIP application to the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District. The district evaluates projects and responds within 20 business days. The district sends an approval notification and reimbursement package to the VIP dealer. The dealer will then submit completed reimbursement package to the district. The district will pay invoices within 15 days if all paperwork is completed timely. I do want to emphasize that if it's all completed timely, if something is missing, the application would be rejected and sent back. So just make sure the 15 days starts when everything is completed timely. The old truck will then be delivered to the dismantler, by the dealer. The applicant will take delivery of the new truck from the VIP dealer. Dismantler must destroy the old truck within 60 days, and the applicant submit annual usage reports for 3 years. Those usage reports will be provided by us to the applicant. Next slide. So general dealership requirements. The dealership must have had a valid California business license for a minimum of the last 2 years. Have a valid vehicle dealership license with DMV for a minimum of the previous 2 years. Maintain at least one employee that has been trained by the district on the terms, conditions, and requirements of the program per location. Agree to allow the district or district designee to inspect vehicles or audit VIP records during normal business hours. I do want to touch on number 3, that you must maintain at least one employee that has been trained by the district on the terms, conditions, and requirements of the program per location. If you have more than one location, then you have to have at least one employee at that location that has been trained or has taken this training. Trump, can I read on? Next slide, please. General dismantler requirements. You're going to be must be licensed by DMV at a dismantler for a minimum of the last 2 years. Have a valid vehicle dealership license with DMV for a minimum of the last 2 years if applicable. Current and valid California Environmental Protection Agency hazardous materials generator permit. Maintain at least one employee that has been trained by the MDAQMD on the terms, conditions, and requirements of the program per location. And the last one, you must be in compliance and remain in compliance with all local, state, and federal laws and regulations. Next slide. Now that was just a quick introduction and a quick program overview. Now we're going to get into the dealer requirements / training section. Next slide. Dealers' expectations. The dealers must be familiar or become familiar with all the program requirements. You must provide accurate program information to potential applicants, must assist applicants in completing applications correctly and accurately, and you must perform vehicle inspections to ensure that the requirements are satisfied. Now, after the training, I will be emailing the participants a link to the VIP guidelines for reference. I highly encourage everybody to kind of read through those guidelines and see what's happening. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Next slide. Dealer expectations continued. Must enter into an agreement with the Mojave Desert AQMD. Must submit complete application packages to the district. Please note that incomplete packages will be rejected and returned to the applicant. The dealers must provide accurate and complete documentation. For example, you must show the voucher amount was deducted from the purchase price of the vehicle on the purchase invoice. And lastly, you're gonna ensure on this slide that all requirements for the old vehicle and the replacement vehicle have been satisfied. Next slide. Dealer expectations continued. The dealers must provide guidance on supporting documentation to the applicants. For example, verification of usage must be miles or gallons for the past 24 months and certification of a small fleet of 10 or fewer heavy-duty vehicles. As far as verification of usage, it can be either miles or gallons. We highly encourage miles, only because miles is easier to track and it's easier to kind of calculate. Whereas gallons, we found out in the past, it's kind of hard to calculate exactly the mileage requirements, or the records aren't as complete. So we typically get better award amounts with the verification of usage based on mile. Certification of the small fleet, that's going to be a report that you get from the trucker's website. Dealers are also will discourage the submittal of inaccurate information from the applicant. Dealers must ensure the old truck has not been stripped of value. So in short, just make sure that truck is still roadworthy. Make sure nothing has been stripped or that it still can be operated. And most importantly, transfer the full value of the voucher to the customer. Next slide. Now, how will you determine a voucher amount if you're a dealer? First of all, you're going to be looking at funding tables Appendix O, which will also be located on our website. One of the first things that you must do as a dealer, you're going to determine the gross vehicle weight rating of the existing truck. Typically, that can be found in the vehicle identification information that's found on the inside door to find out what the gross vehicle weight rating is. Then after that, you're going to determine if the applicant is drayage or non-drayage vehicle. And then you're going to calculate the mileage for the past 2 month period, the past 12-month period, and determine potential voucher amount based on the corresponding table using the engine model year and usage. For drayage truck, the original truck useful life requirements must not be over 14 years of age and 400,000 miles odometer reading to be eligible. Now let's go over an example of what's going to look like looking the values from Appendix O. Next slide, please. So right here in this particular example, we're looking at table O-1B for a new zero emission replacement truck. And in this example, it's a non-drayage. It is a heavy duty truck with a gross vehicle weight rating over 33,000 pounds. In this case, we determined that the vehicle is a 2015. So great, we find that. The next thing is, as I mentioned, we got to determine the minimum annual miles usage. In this case, based on the 12-month period, this vehicle, next slide, Tron, got minimal annual mile usage with 56,000 miles. So now we have the model year, we have the mileage, and then the next finding arrows, next slide, please. The potential voucher amount for this particular example would be a voucher amount of $280,000. Next slide. For example 2, we're going to be looking at table O-28 for a new zero emission replacement. In this case, it is a drayage truck. I don't expect to see too much drayage truck within our jurisdiction, but I still wanted to provide an example just in case. And in this case, it's a light heavy duty with a gross vehicle weight rating of 14,001 to 19,500 pounds, and also a medium heavy duty with a gross vehicle weight rating of 19,501 to 33,000 pounds. Which makes light heavy duty and medium heavy duty easier is that they fall within the same funding table. So regardless of whether it's a light heavy duty, medium heavy duty, the funding amount's not going to change. In this case, we determine that the vehicle model year is 2013. Next slide. When we look at the mileage, we determine that the mileage for this particular vehicle is 44,000 miles as far as a year. Then we keep moving over to the funding amount, and we realize that this truck, next slide, is potentially eligible for a voucher amount of up to $160,000. I'm going to pause there really quickly to see if there's any questions, and I'm going to pause for about 20 seconds. Not seeing any questions in their chat or any hands raised. We're gonna move on. Trump, can you go on to the next slide, please? The old or / baseline vehicle requirements. For the vehicle to be eligible, the engine must be model year 2010 to 2018 for the baseline equipment. It must be a diesel or alternative fuel vehicles. Alternative fuel vehicles would be a CNG truck, for example. It must have a gross vehicle weight rating greater than or equal to 14,001 pounds. It must be owned by the applicant for the previous 24 months. The vehicle title with owner / applicant listed on it as a sole owner, which means, and also let me just add to that, no active lien holders. The truck must be continuous California registration for the previous 24 months or a consecutive month of usage with 24 months of California operation documentation. You must provide proof of insurance showing continuous history over the previous 24 months. I know I mentioned this before, but I just want to say it again. The truck must be owned outright. There must not be any active lien holders. Next slide. Continuing with the requirements for the old baseline vehicle, at least 75% of operations must be in California in each 12-month period for the previous 24 months. must be in operational condition, and this would be verified by the dealer at the time of the pre-inspection. Engine details must be verifiable through the tag or some kind of manufacturer information. So sometimes some of these older vehicles, the tag may be missing, so we need to have the manufacturer verify the specifications of that truck. Something to add, glider kits are acceptable for the old/baseline unit only, not for the new replacement one. And the applicants must deliver old vehicle to the dealer in the same condition as when it was pre-inspected. Next slide. Now, if you're approved for a voucher, but the old engine undergoes an accident or failure, it may still be eligible for an award. Applicants must deliver, I gotta replay this, kind of put emphasis on this that I mentioned, we're all partners. Applicants must deliver the old vehicle to the dealer in the same condition as it was when it was pre-inspected. Please note that the dealers can reject if the condition is not roadworthy. Next slide. The fleet compliance requirement. Applicants who wish to participate in the Voucher Incentive Program must demonstrate compliance with CARB's truck and bus regulation. Applicants must provide and submit the trucker's compliance certificate or DTR documentation if drayage. DTR stands for Drayage Truck Registry, and truck is an abbreviation for the Truck Regulation Upload Compliance and Reporting System that is run by CARB. The compliance status, vehicle, and company information must be printed out from trucker then provided as part of the application. And this is very important for the dealers. Printout dates must match the application date. So if you print them out today, please ensure that the application date is today. If the application date is dated for tomorrow, then you printouts are going to have to print it out to match the date of the application submittal. Next slide. New vehicle requirement. The new vehicle requirement, the vehicle must be purchased from an MDAQMD approved participating dealership. The replacement vehicle must be 2023 or newer and must have a motor or powertrain that is certified to the zero emission standard. As I mentioned, only zero emission replacement trucks are eligible for the Voucher Incentive Program. Electric vehicle conversions are not eligible for VIP, so these have to be a new 2023 or newer replacement zero emission vehicle. The new vehicle must be registered by California DMV in the same weight class as the old vehicle. So if you're getting a medium heavy duty vehicle, then the replacement will also be registered as a medium heavy duty vehicle. The vehicle title must be claimed for the new one, and the replacement truck must be delivered in California. No out-of-state deliveries. So if they're going to be delivered in Arizona or Phoenix, that's not going to work. It has to be delivered in the dealership in California. Next slide. Continuing, as I mentioned, purchase from MDAQ approved participating dealership. Oh, I think this is a duplicate slide. But I'll go over it just to make sure. So purchase from MDAQ approved participating dealership. Replacement vehicle must be 2023 or newer and must have a motor powertrain that is certified to the zero emission standard, registered by California DMV in the same weight class as the old vehicle, and the vehicle title must be clean, not have been an accident, and repaired for resale. Next slide. I can't emphasize this enough, so I want to make sure it's here. The new vehicle requirement, it has to be a zero emission standard replacement vehicles, must have a minimum of a 3-year or 50,000 mile warranty period for zero emission powertrain components, including the motor, drivetrain, battery or energy storage, and parts and labor. We do encourage that the highest grade warranty be purchased to help prevent any additional maintenance costs if required. Next slide. Early in the presentation, I did talk about the AB 794 requirements, and I did mention I was going to go into more detail in another slide. So one thing for the AB 794 requirement, this has to be done before you even apply for the Voucher Incentive Program. Now, AB 794 is new require that a fleet purchaser that received an incentive at a grant, loan, or other form of agreement promise to comply with all the following AB 794 conditions. You must be compliant and stay compliant with applicable labor laws, including section 2810.1 of the Labor Code. Complete and submit an attestation at https www.cavevlabor.compliance.org /S/S, stating that the applicant is complying with applicable labor laws, including section 2810-4 of the Labor Code. You need to confirm that the attestation continues to be true annually for a minimum of 3 years or until the end of this agreement. As I mentioned, you have a 3-year reporting requirement, so it would be good at your report to kind of go back and do this. Is liable for the repayment of any incentive if applicant becomes out of compliance with labor laws during the time that the contract entered is still into effect, and inform the public how they can submit a labor law complaint via CARB website for companies that receive funding. I know this was a lot, but I just kind of want to stress out that for AB 794, you have to go and complete your attestation prior to even going to the dealership to apply. So I really can't stress that enough. And you have to do this yearly as well. As far as I understand, you click into there, you create an account, and you kind of you do a self-attestation from the area. Next slide. Now, documentation required from the dealership when submitting a VIP application. So the requirements: currently own and operate the truck. We already know that. You need to provide a minimum of a 2-year history of truck operation. And the old truck must be operated or at least operated 75% of mileage in California during each 12 months period for the previous 24 months. We know the requirements. Now the documentation to meet the requirements will obviously be a current DMV title, usage documentation such as logbook, fuel receipts, maintenance report, and tax return, or if needed, an IFTA record for single truck fleet. IFTA stands for Record for Single Truck Fleet for Internet, and the IFTA stands for International Fuel Tax Agreement. Next slide. Now, we went over the general VIP process. Now I do want to touch on the process for dealerships a little bit more in detail. So I'll go over the steps. First, dealer inspect the applicant's existing vehicle and documentation to determine eligibility. So in this case, the dealer will look at the baseline equipment to make sure that the truck is, roadworthy and it's not been stripped, and they'll look at documentation to determine whether this truck is eligible. 24 months registration, 24 months usage as far as that. If eligible, the dealer will then assist the applicant to complete the application. Once that's completed, the dealer submits the completed application to the Mojave Desert AQMD. Us as a district will approve or reject within 20 business days of receiving that application. If rejected, the applicant will get a letter. If approved, dealer gets the voucher package and initiate an award. Now, if the application gets rejected, that doesn't mean that individual or the applicant can't reapply. Maybe they got rejected because they didn't provide the appropriate 24 months of usage documentation. If you were to get a rejection letter, the reason for that will be clearly stated. However, you would need to complete a new application so we can re-review that for potential eligibility. Now, if you did get approved, as I mentioned, now you're going to get a voucher package and get the voucher reimbursement package initiating. Once we end up doing that, the applicant signs the PO or invoice, and the dealer gets the vehicle ready. Depending whether they have the truck in stock or whether they have to order it, that process can take a little bit. The applicant then turns in the old truck, picks up new truck, and signs to receive the voucher. The dealer will contact the authorized dismantler for pickup of the old truck. Dealer completes reimbursement package and submits to the Mojave Desert AQMD, and the MDAQMD approves the reimbursement package and issues payment to the dealership on behalf of the applicant. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, can you go back one more slide? There's one more thing I wanted to mention. As I mentioned here, depending on whether the truck is in the shop or not, or they have to order it, during the time, let's just say that the truck has to be manufactured because there's not a zero emission option at the dealership, the applicant can still operate their old truck into the new one to ride. So I just want to make sure that's clear. And also just to make sure the dealership at this time is also responsible for the pre-inspection to ensure the truck is roadworthy. Next slide. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the inspection that the dealers have to do. There's going to be something called a pre-inspection and a pre-dismantle inspection for the old truck or the baseline truck. For the pre-inspection, that would happen at the time of the application. Dealer inspects the old vehicle to confirm it is operational and eligible for the program award. For the pre-dismantle, typically what happened after the award is confirmed. Dealership again inspect the old vehicle to make sure that there have been no substantial changes since the initial pre-inspection. Dealer must also reject the condition of the existing vehicle if it is deemed unroadworthy or parts were stripped from the existing vehicle. The title is signed and other documentation is intact. Next slide. All right. Inspection, another inspection that the dealer would have to do would be the new truck replacement or the post inspection. The dealership must confirm program-funded truck to be awarded its correct vehicle and meets all the program requirement. So if the invoice or the agreement said that they were going to purchase a 2024 zero-emission Tesla truck, just throwing out there an example, heavy duty, then that truck has to be the one that comes to the dealership, and that's the one that's going to have to be completed with the post inspection. Next slide. Now, once you submit an once we get that, dealers will also get the Appendix I, which is the Voucher Incentive Program inspection form, and we're kind of going to go over it. So once you see the screenshot of the Appendix I, the dealership and the dismantler will be able to mark the type of inspection. You have the option for existing vehicles, the pre-inspection, the pre-dismantle inspection, and the dismantle inspection, the post inspection, or that you have the option for, and legible picture, yes or no. So you're going to end up marking down what type of inspection you're doing and what's applicable to you, and then you're going to enter the applicant information at the bottom thing, the company name, owner name, the address, and all the contact information. I will tell you that to make sure that we enter the information of the company as well as an email if you have it, because most of our things are being done electronically. So as far as the owner name and company, if you can enter a telephone number and an email, that would greatly help us out. Next slide. Continuing with the information, you're also with the Appendix I for the inspection, you're going to provide information on the existing vehicle or the replacement vehicle. You're going to mark down whether it's existing or replacement. You're going to put the vehicle make, model, the year, the VIN number, license plate, date of manufacturer, things along those lines. Now, we do know that some of this information, if it's a replacement, may not be readily available yet, especially if you have to order it. So just make sure you're kind of worthy as far as that. Next slide, please. Once we end up doing that, there's going to be a different section for the vehicle information on the replacement. For the powertrain information, the replacement would have to be either electric motor or powertrain, and you're going to end up putting that information there. Is the engine and vehicle operational? Yes or no. Fuel use, existing, replacement, electric, or other. Existing vehicle only if a filter is installed. So you're still kind of going to go through all the steps of an inspection to make sure all the information is completed. Next slide. Now, this is the thing for dismantle inspection only specified. This is something that the dismantlers are going to do as well in partnership with the air district. You're going to have to put down the dealership is going to have to put down the dismantler they're taking it to, the contact name and the telephone, the DMV tile delivered and signed by the owner, and whether the engine is operational or not. Remember, the engine has to be operational and it cannot be stripped. And then we're going to continue. You're going to end up putting information on dismantle inspection only. Is the number of vehicle certificate filed with the DMV, frame rails cut, engine destroyed. That will kind of happen once you destroy the baseline equipment. Next slide. I did want to point out here that let's just say if the baseline equipment does have a glider kit, you would put that information here in the comment section on Appendix I on page 3 or 4. That's kind of what helped you with the information and say baseline equipment had a glider kit. That's where you would put that information on there. As you get through the application, you can see that there's a signature, an authorized date, air district / dealership, which would be us, the address, and the telephone number. Next slide. Now, as far as the pre-inspection, there's also going to be required photographs that need to be in there. We do have a question. And I'll read it out loud. Well, the dismantler inspection form will be posted on our website, and it will also be emailed to the individuals that are participating within the program. Now we're getting to the required photographs. We need to make sure that the pictures that are provided are legible, and there's a checklist on Appendix I of the photo that we need and the type of photo for the type of inspection. So the inspection of the existing vehicle, you need to have a picture of the vehicle from the left side, the right side, from the front, license plate if you have it available, from the back, the VIN number, the gross vehicle weight rating, the odometer reading, and the engine tag if available. The engine tag will typically have the engine make, the model, the engine serial number, and the engine family / number / name. If you're able to get one picture with all that information, like if you get a good engine tag and you meet the engine model and the make, that picture could take the place of, having all those other requirements like the engine serial number, which mean that you don't need to take an individual picture of the engine make or the engine model. If you're able to get a good picture of the tag, that's kind of what we need. The post inspection of replacement vehicle is also listed the type of photographs you need from there. There's also information for the pre-dismantle inspection of the existing vehicle and the dismantle inspection of the existing vehicle. Next slide. Now, this is still going on to the dealership. When you submit your application, the application itself must have the wet signature and the following: copy of the old vehicle title solely owned outright by the owner, vehicle usage documentation for the previous 24 months, copy of the DMV vehicle registration for previous 24 months or a consecutive month with 24 months of California operation or documentation, copy of the insurance card for previous 24 months with the VIN, inspection form signed by the dealer, digital photos, clear minimum resolution of 640 times 480 pixel, verification of the old engine model year, signed quote and specification sheet for the replacement vehicle, and a copy of the CARB executive order for the replacement engine. Next slide. Now, I can't stress this enough. Incomplete packages will not be accepted from the dealers. So if you're missing something and you have a question on what can be considered a required documentation, things like that, please contact me and we can go over that together. Because we do want to have complete applications from the very beginning, because it just speeds up the process. So if in doubt, just go ahead and call me and we can kind of go through the application together to make sure that it's complete prior to submittal. And the dealers also, like I mentioned, you ensure the application is complete. Ensure the application is signed and completed and signed by the actual applicant. There are no gaps in vehicle ownerships or usage. All required documentation must be included, inspection documentation, and clear digital photographs of old vehicle. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, please call. We want to work together. This is a partnership and want to make sure that we get the right documentation to make the process go. Next slide. Now, I do also want to go over Appendix A with the actual application package as far as what the dealers and the applicants must submit. This is just kind of a screenshot. Next slide, please. The first 2 pages of the application is a reminder of what the guidelines say about what eligibility criteria is. Some of that was already covered earlier during the presentation. So we don't need the first 2 pages when this is submitted to us. So you can actually omit the first and second page. Next slide. And once we start going through the application, you're just kind of going to fill in the information, applicant information, company, owner, telephone, fax. And I mentioned earlier, we're going to do a lot through email. So please ensure that you provide an email for the applicant information. You can also attach a business card if required as far as the application checklist. The dealer information, that's going to be your dealership, the salesperson, telephone, the fax, an email of a good contact. And you also have the option to attach a business card. Next slide. What I do like about the VIP application or Appendix A, they do have an applicant requirement checklist. As long as you're going through this checklist and marking down everything you have, you should pretty much be pretty confident that you have a completed application as far as that. As I mentioned, they do have those check boxes as far as what you need. Next slide. I know this picture is not the greatest, but I just kind of wanted to get at least a shot of what the application looks like as far as the page when you start entering the applicant information and the third-party information. Third-party information would really be required if they were just going through a side vendor and a consultant that would be completing the application on the applicant's behalf. So if you're helping if the dealer is helping the applicant with the application, there's really no need to put the third-party information. This is really only if a consultant doing it on behalf of the applicant. Next slide. Still kind of going through the application. I put screenshots of what we have. One thing I do want to note on page 6 that the CHP number is the same as the California number. So if you get to that, don't get confused that I mentioned the CHP number is the same as the California number. Now, as far as the replacement vehicle, I mentioned this earlier as well. We realize that you may not have the information for the replacement vehicle, especially if it needs to be ordered. Don't order, however, until an application is approved. You can put TBD in the vehicle make, model, and year for the replacement during this time for some of the information that may not be available. Like you may know the vehicle make and the model and the vehicle model year, but you may not know the VIN number or the license plate or potentially manufacturer date or the odometer reading, especially if they're still building that's a custom made. Next slide. Now we're going to go on to the next part of the application where you're going to kind of put, you're going to keep filling out the application, the cap style, electric motor, powertrain information. If it's a zero emission certified, you're going to enter the information. Like I mentioned, we're going to need the executive order, but some of this information you may not have it yet. You can put TBD for the time being. Next slide. And on the last page of the application, it's just kind of a reporting and compliance option for heavy duty truck, including dry trucks. You're going to check all that apply. The first box is required, pretty much saying that you're operating your truck, you're doing what you have to do, and whether it's in a NOx exempt area. If you're within Southern California and you're not going to be in a NOx exempt area, doesn't mean you may not operate in a NOx exempt area in some of the northern parts of the state. So just kind of keep that in mind. And one of the things we do encourage you to do, well, not encourage you to do, but as part of the application, reading that map on the right, which is going to be bigger on the application, estimate the percentage of your annual mileage or usage that normally occurs in each area based on the previous 2 years. So in this case, if an applicant operated 85% of the time in the Mojave Desert and 15% in the South Sea, we would appreciate if you would put that thing and just make sure whatever percentages you put in there have to be equal to 0. Next slide. This is kind of getting to the end of the application. I know it's a little small, but I just kind of wanted to make sure you see it. Once you kind of go in there, you're going to have by submitting the information, you're including the information under that it's under penalty of law, the best of your knowledge, the information is correct. And then you're going to have the owner's signature and the date, as well as the printer name and the title of the owner. And the Air District contact information, that would be my contact information, and I would be the lead for this program. You make sure that's completed. Now, I will encourage all applicants and the dealers to make sure that all the bulletin points that the applicant should read and acknowledge so they can make sure, they know what they're submitting. Next slide. Once the dealer and the applicant complete the application package with all supporting documentation, including the completed pre-inspection forms and photos, you're going to scan that into one PDF document, and you're going to email the PDF to grants@mdaqmd.ca.gov. In the subject line of that email, you're going to enter the VIP application and name of the applicant. So, for example, it would be VIP application Jorge Camacho if a dealer was submitting the application on my behalf. Please note that you must submit a separate email for each application. When scanning all these in, try to keep that file to 20 megabytes or less, or create a zip file because some of the large files may not go through. If you're having questions on whether your application went through, like I mentioned, don't hesitate to contact me, and we can work through it to make sure we get that application. And then just make sure that the document provided must be clear and legible. Next slide. Continuing with the voucher package for the dealer. Once the application is approved, the dealer will receive the documents shown on the right to complete and submit with the reimbursement package. So once your application gets approved, the district will then send you a reimbursement voucher package. And the documents that are going to be included in that would be the voucher, which would be Appendix F, receipt of voucher, Appendix G, reimbursement invoice, Appendix H, inspection forms, Appendix I, and then you're going to have to potentially do it, not potentially, but you're going to have to complete a pre-dismantle inspection, and then a reimbursement checklist, Appendix J. Appendix J is a really helpful tool that as well, because as I mentioned in the application, it has checkboxes of all the information you need, and Appendix J will help you make sure that your reimbursement package is also complete. Next slide. Now, the dealer reimbursement package must be submitted to the Mojave debtor AQMD, and your dealer must include the following original documents: the voucher, which is Appendix F, receipt of voucher signed by the participant, Appendix G, and the reimbursements invoice signed by the dealership, Appendix H. Next slide. As far as what you must, the dealer must include as a copy of the following with the reimbursement package is the DMV registration, financing documentation signed by the applicant, if applicable, final invoice showing final purchase price less awards signed and dated by the applicant, replacement vehicle warranty of 3 years or 50,000 miles for zero emission powertrain components, including the motor, drivetrain, battery, or energy storage and parts and labor, and the title of the old vehicle signed and dated by the applicant. I touched on this before on depending on the vehicle, whether you have one on storage or not. Especially DMV registration for that new replacement truck. It may not be available, especially with a new truck right away. CARB has provided us some leeway, and you can provide 3 elements or forms to kind of help this. A DMV form 343, the application for the new title or registration, DMV regulation 4008 signed by the applicant, and a copy of the old title sign off on the midsection where they are releasing the rights to that truck if you don't have the information for the new vehicle yet. Next slide. And still continue with the reimbursement package. Please make sure that inspection form, Appendix I, and photos of the old and replacement vehicles are included. Location of the dismantler yard where the old vehicle will be destroyed, and date the old vehicle is delivered to the dismantler or picked up by the dismantler. Next slide. Once the reimbursement package is completed, all supporting documents and forms must be scanned into one PDF document. Email the package to grant@mdaqmd.ca.gov. In the subject line, enter VIP application and name of applicant. Another example would be VIP application - Jorge Camacho if I was submitting and that was the applicant. Reminder: submit separate emails for each project or truck. And dealer must submit the completed VIP dealer certification form with and all the checks certification form with, and the check will be mailed directly to the dealership. Next slide. Basic requirements for dismantlers. Now we're getting into the dismantler requirements. So one thing the dismantler must do: ensure the old truck be permanently removed from operation. One of the things we mentioned in this program is we want to remove higher polluting equipment with newer engine technology. The way we can do that is to permanently destroy the old vehicles. Now, within 60 days of receipt of the baseline or the old truck, the dismantler must ensure the equipment is destroyed. Both frame rails must be completely severed between the front and rear axles. Puncturing the engine block, minimum 3-inch hole. Oh, there's a typo there. Irregularly shaped, and the section of the oil pan flange must be removed as part of the hole, or have a line cut through it that connects the holes. Now, once we do that, please make sure once you receive a truck, please notify the district that you have received the truck, because we also want to be there to witness the destruction of that vehicle. And as far as the program, once you ended up doing that, you also must provide documentation to the MDAQMD that the old truck is registered with DMV as non-repairable with a transaction code AL10 or C26, and provide verification to the MDAQMD from the DMV that the truck has been registered as non-repairable within 90 days of the dismantle inspection or the reconciliation report. Next slide.
Hey, Jorge.
Yes.
Hey, so did you just say you want to witness the destruction?
We're if we can't witness, if we can be there to witness it, we would like to witness it. But if we can't do that, if we can't be there, then yes, the dealership can destroy that.
Okay, so I'm good to cut the hole and everything in the truck and then call you guys out to inspect it afterwards?
Yes, there you go. That would work.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Now we get to the next part of our agenda: dismantler requirements and training. So the dismantler's role: you must be licensed by the DMV as a dismantler. You must have a valid California business license for a minimum of the last 2 years. A current valid Environmental Protection Agency hazardous material generator permit, and you must be in compliance with all laws and regulations. sorry, I forgot to about the next line. Dismantler documentation. Dismantler must notify that the MDAQMD that the vehicle has been destroyed and is ready for inspection. Provide documentation to the district that the old truck is registered with DMV and non-repairable with the transaction code L10 or C26. Provide copy of this file to the district at the post-dismantle inspection. And provide verification to the district from the DMV that the truck has been registered and non-repairable within 90 days of the dismantle inspection date. Next slide. A dismantler must conduct a post-dismantle inspection outlined in the VIP guidelines by filling out the inspection form and taking the required photograph. I know a question was asked earlier. We will be emailing that Appendix I to the participating dealership and dismantler, but the form will also be available on our website as well. The district will count on the dismantler as applicable to provide the inspection instruction and required paperwork. Note, dismantler must let the district staff know when they receive the equipment. And dismantlers will need to make sure that the post-dismantle inspection has been reviewed or approved by the MDAQMD before the moving the truck from the facility. Now we reach the last part of the agenda, the questions and comments section. Next slide. Next slide. Now, I'm just replacing my contact information there for anybody that needs it. There's my email, my phone number, application submittal / question at grants@mdaqmd.ca.gov. I also put the information for the truckers database and regulation inquiry. Please call the truckers hotline. As I mentioned, that's managed by the state. So any questions relating to truckers, please call that hotline and they would be able to assist you with that. And right there, I just want to open up the floor to any questions that may be available, either in the chat or hand up. All right, not seeing any questions or, oh.
I'm good. I didn't have any questions. I was
Okay.
just thinking we were gonna end the call, so I was gonna say later.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so with that, since we don't have any questions or calls, or questions or any questions in on the Zoom or any questions in the chat, we have reached the end of this training. This training will be made available on our website as well as a reference, so you can always refer back to it there. But as I mentioned, you can always contact me for any questions concerning the program itself. So
Jorge, thank you very much.
okay, thank you. So with that said, we will be ending the presentation.
All right, thank you.